Hi, hello, welcome. So here's the thing. I want to read the book 8 Perfect Murders. I've been wanting to read this book ever since it came out last year. And to read it, I need to read 8 other books. So here's what 8 Perfect Murders is about. There's a man who writes a blog post all about like the list of, in his opinion, like the best murders in literature. And so there are 8 perfect murders. And then one day, the police knocked on his door and demands answers because apparently there is a serial killer who is committing murders in the same way that they are described in these books. So the police think that he is involved and he's not, and so he helps them uncover this serial killer. Now, do you have to read the 8 books to enjoy 8 Perfect Murders? No, in fact, there's one reviewer on Goodreads that mentions that it's actually in a way nicer because you don't know what to expect. Whereas if you know what those books are about and what those murders involved, you're a little more in the know. I don't know. All the books on this list are pretty old. The newest book on the list was published in 1994, I think. And there's a bunch from like the 30s and even 20s. I'm calling this my 8 Perfect Murders project because I want to read these books and then I want to finally read 8 Perfect Murders because, as I said, I want to read it. I own the book on ebook. There are 8 books. 2 books I have already read. Then there's one that I just can't find for free. It's not available in the library. I couldn't find it on Scribd. And to be perfectly honest, I'm just like, I'm fine not reading this book. It doesn't sound particularly mind-blowing. So that's 5 now. And then there's another one that is a play. It was published as a play. And again, I cannot find the text anywhere, and I'm not willing to spend money on this. But there was a movie that was done based on the play, and from what I understand, it's pretty true to the text. So I'm going to watch the movie for that one. And then I have like 2 ebooks and 2 audiobooks. So I think this is all doable. So now to the list. The 2 books that I've already read are The Secret History by Donna Tartt and The ABC Murders by Agatha Christie. Then the book that I couldn't find anywhere and I will not be reading is The Downer by John MacDonald. It was published in 1963. The book that is a play that I'm going to watch the movie of is Death Trap. It was published in 1974. No, 1978. And then there's the Red House Mystery by Alan Milne. Yes, that's the same guy that wrote the Winnie and the Pooh, which I'm actually very excited about this book. It was published in 1922. Then Malice Aforethought, and it was published in 1931. And then the 2 audiobooks, one I'm listening to right now is Double Indemnity, which is by James Cain, published in 1936, and Strangers on the Train by Patricia Highsmith, published in 1950. I will talk a little more about what each book is about when I get to them. I'm currently, as I said, I'm reading Double Indemnity on audiobook. It's a wild ride, let me tell you. The concept is awesome, but oh, the little things. Just to give you an idea of what I mean, is something like this.
I began subtracting her age from my age. She was 19, I'm 34. That made a difference of 15 years. Then I got to thinking if she was nearly 20, that would make a difference of only 14 years. All of a sudden, I sat up and turned on the light. I knew what that meant. I was in love with her.
What? Hello, 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 hello. This will be a long clip because I'll have to talk to you about 4 books. Okay, so quickly, I read The Secret History after seeing that it was on the list for the 8 Perfect Murders, and I was honestly surprised after finishing it that it was on the list because this book is not about murder. Like, it has a murder in it and it's like a big event that makes other things happen, and it's all like revolving around this death. but it's not like a murder book. It's definitely not a murder mystery. If you are someone who enjoys, you know, murder mysteries and just murder books, this would not be a book that I would recommend to you, because even though it has murder, it's not about murder. So I was surprised to see it on the list, and then I looked again on the Goodreads of the 8 Perfect Murders, and apparently the criteria for criterium for the books on the list of the 8 Perfect Murders, it was all about the murders that are impossible to solve. So, well, I don't want to spoil Secret History for you, so I won't say what I want to say, but it makes a little more sense why this book would be on it, even though, again, this is not a murder book. And then I read the ABC Murders by Agatha Christie. I didn't super love this book. I felt like the premise that, you know, as a reader going in, takes the investigators way too long to understand in the book, and then also the reveal had to do with mental health. So the conclusion, the reveal came out of nowhere, and I didn't like the way mental health was used in this book. And because, again, the reason for the murders came out of like left field, I can see why this would be like a hard murder to solve. But again, I think maybe there are better books that would be like, that would feature an unsolvable murder. So I don't know, I didn't love ABC Murders, and I enjoyed the Secret History, but not for the murder element. Actually, I went into this book expecting the murder to be like a big thing and being a little more like a murder mystery, and it wasn't, so I was a little disappointed. Another like dark academia book that has a murder in it, but the one that I love, it's one of my all-time favorites, is If We Were Villains, and that book is often paired together with Secret History, but personally I think that other one is done better. It also has a lot of Shakespeare in it and it has more, like, it deals more with the murder. It's more of a murder mystery, so that's probably why I liked it more. So since I last talked to you, I finished Double Indemnity. It was published in 1936, and it's one of the like iconic mystery noirs, whatever that means. So a lot of people on Goodreads adore this book. I liked it. I mean, I think I gave it 3 stars altogether because I really like the concept. I liked a lot of things in it. There are a lot of plot twists and I really enjoyed them. What I didn't enjoy is the way it was written, and some things just don't make sense nowadays. There's this insurance guy who wants to sell insurance to this man, but the man is not at home, his wife is, and he ends up talking to her, and she's like super hot. She also gives him an impression that she might want to kill her husband. Like the questions she asks about the insurance make him think that, oh, planning something. And they meet like twice, and this guy is in love because she is hot. She is so hot that he decides to help her kill her husband. Does it make sense? No. They barely have a conversation, and it's just treated as like a normal thing that, you know, he's doing this for this woman, but like he doesn't know her at all. And like that part was just so weird to me, because like, what is happening? And of course, like the other reason is the money, because they would do it in a way that they would get like the insurance money, and they can split it halfway, and it's a lot of money. And I feel like if it had a little more emphasis on the money, it would be more believable than that he's doing this for this woman who he wants to be with. But like, what's her name? He learns her name only on the 2nd or 3rd time that they meet. So there is that. I do like the idea of this, you know, insurance guy who has seen so many different cases in his work, a lot of people trying to trick the system and get the insurance money, and like he knows all the tricks in the book. And in all the time that he was working, he came up with like the ideal system to go around the system and actually get that insurance money. There's much more to the story. There are more twists and turns apart from the fact that he just falls in love with this woman, and there's also this weird section that I made you listen to about like falling in love with a 19-year-old girl. I mean, ugh. And there's a lot of talk about like women's sensibilities, and they're like, oh, women are so weird, they're these weird creatures. And here's this like man who thinks he's so smart, and he's very much that like, I'm smart, you're stupid, shut up. But the way he like allows himself to be led by women is just, I just don't understand. He also has a young man working for him in his home. The only way he refers to him is the Filipino, which I did not like. Again, the plot was excellent. The tone was weird. But overall I gave it 3 stars. Then I watched the movie Death Trap, which is based on the play, which was written in 1978. And the movie was done, I think, in 1982, and it was fun, good. It was good. I'm gonna say it was good. As I was watching the movie, I also had the Wikipedia page of the play open, and I was reading the synopsis of the play as I was watching, so I could see how it would be different from the play. And this play was very popular. It's one of the is the longest running like comedy thriller on Broadway. It was nominated for 4 Tony Awards, including Best Play. And honestly, after watching the movie, I can see how in play form it would have been a little better than the movie. The movie was great. It was suspenseful. You never know what's happening. There are so many plot twists and just like turns everything around, and you never expect what's coming next. However, there is this little like comedy element which in the movie was not used enough. So when they would use it, it just felt a little left field because you're very much taking everything seriously, and then there's this comic character and it feels a little unbalanced, I would say. And I definitely would enjoy more the ending that was in the play versus the one that was done in the movie, though I can see why it would have been hard to do that in the movie. The premise of the play is that once very successful playwright of thrillers on Broadway has a new play out, and it's another flop, and he's very upset. And then a student of his, in one of his writing workshops, he sends him his manuscript of a thriller, and that manuscript is flawless. It's incredible. And so this guy gets really upset, and he plots to murder this student of his to get that manuscript and publish it as his play to finally have another success. And there is his wife, who she has suspicions that that's what her husband is planning, but is not sure. And there are so many plot twists. I do have to say there's one plot twist that has to do with someone's sexuality, and again, I can definitely tell that it was written in a very different time. But overall, it was pretty good. Would I like recommend it to everyone? I mean, I don't know. It's a movie from the 80s. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm talking very fast to make this clip as short as I possibly can. And the next book that I'm reading, I started last night, The Red House Mystery, which was published in 1922, and so far not much has happened. I only read the first chapter. There's a house in England. In the first chapter, you're following the maids as they're gossiping about how the master of the house is expecting his brother to arrive, and they never heard of this brother. Apparently, his brother hasn't been home in 15 years, and he's been in Australia, and they're all talking about how, ooh, he's from Australia, he must be a criminal and dangerous person. And then this person arrives, and they hear a gunshot in the house, and that's where the first chapter ended, and that's all I know and all that I can tell you. I'm excited to go on. I don't know how long this project will take me. I'm trying to make it as fast as I can to not make it like a month-long situation. I was supposed to read 5 books for this. I read 1, watched the movie of the second one, and I have 3 more. Hey guys, it's the next day. I just wanted to update you. I am almost done with Red House Mystery, and I'm loving it so much. It's so good. It's exactly what I needed, and I'm having such a fun time reading it. I did not expect to read pretty much all in one day. I have like 20 pages left, and I still have no idea like what happened. Who did it? I don't know. And I can't wait to find out. It's written in such like, not funny, but yeah, like witty way. And it's absolutely delightful. If you like the classic mysteries, like Agatha Christie, and there are a lot of references to Sherlock Holmes, the guy who we are following, who's like an amateur detective. He and his friend, they don't make fun of Sherlock Holmes, but they often you know, take the roles of Sherlock and Watson. I really want someone to film the movie based on this book. Like, I really want it to be adapted into a movie or a TV show. I think it would be so good, so fun, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it. So I finished Red House Mystery, and it's 5 stars. Oh, it was so good. I just wanted to read you this thing in the beginning. To John Vine Milne, my dear father, like all really nice people, you have a weakness for detective stories and feel that there are not enough of them. So after all that you have done for me, the least that I can do for you is to write you one. Here it is, with more gratitude and affection than I can well put down here. He wrote it for his dad. It was incredible. So the guy who is the detective in the story is a well-off young man who has enough money to basically do what he wants, and what he likes to do is try out different professions. So for like a little bit he's a waiter, then he works at a store. He just like tries different things and takes everything seriously. And so he arrives at this little town and finds out that one of his friends is staying at the Red House, and so he wants to, you know, come over, say hey. And as he arrives at the house, there's been a murder, and he decides that it's time to try out a new profession, and that is the detective. Separately from the police, he does his own investigation, and it's not that kind of mystery where you don't know anything and in the end everything is revealed. He has a lot of theories, and he talks them out with his friend, and they sort of bounce ideas off of each other. There is the reveal in the end, but I really like their interpretations of things and theories and observations and stuff like that. What's happening to my voice? I don't know. I'm so glad I read this. I remember hearing first about this book from Jean Bookish Thoughts. She mentioned it in a video, and I googled the book, just I don't know, to see what came up, because I was wondering if there is a movie, because I want a movie of this. And what came up was Jean's video of the review of this book from 2015. I watched it and it's so lovely, and yeah, she also loved the book and she talked about it, and I'm gonna link that video in the description if you want to check it out. Anyway, so I read yet another book. I still have 2 more books to read before getting to 8 Perfect Murders. Anyway, I will update you later. Hello, hi. I just finished reading, listening to Strangers on the Train by Patricia Highsmith. I've not updated you in like a week because I was doing a different vlog, and finally I finished listening to this book. So let me read you the synopsis. We encounter Guy Haynes and Charles Anthony Bruno, passengers on the same train. But while Guy is a successful architect in the midst of a divorce, Bruno turns out to be a sadistic psychopath who manipulates Guy into swapping murders with him. Some people are better off dead, Bruno remarks, like your wife and my father, for instance. As Bruno carries out his twisted plan, Guy is trapped in Highsmith's perilous world where under the right circumstances anybody is capable of murder. So this book was actually the inspiration for Alfred Hitchcock's movie Strangers on a Train that was released in 1951. I have not seen that movie, but now I kind of want to. People say that the book is darker and more sinister than the movie. So what I was expecting for literally no reason, a novel about two men who meet by chance on a train, and the whole novel is that one train ride and how slowly through dialogue, manipulation, and all kinds of mind games, one of those guys makes the other agree to a murder. Now that I'm saying it, I realize that this sounds like a very cool play and something that I would love to read, to watch. This is not it though. This book goes on for like another year after they meet on the train, and it's kind of like you know, what guilt does to you, what not doing the right thing in the right time does to you, what secrecy does to you. It's pretty good, actually. It's definitely not a favorite book, but it's very hard for me to talk about it because I don't really know how to talk about this book, to be honest. It has a very interesting concept of like, you can meet someone randomly on a train and that can change your whole life. So we have two main characters, Charles and Guy, and Charles here, as I just read to you, is described as a psychopath, and he's definitely all over the place and a very interesting character. I kind of enjoyed reading from his perspective just because like he was so erratic and weird. Guy is this like architect who is struggling with a divorce and is very much thinks of himself as like a good guy, and as all men who think of themselves as I'm the good guy, he really isn't. And he's so like disgusted with Charles, but Guy is absolutely not like a good person, I don't think. I really did not enjoy reading from his perspective because it was very much like, poor me, which yeah, is never fun. I don't know what to tell you because I don't know how I feel about this book. I think I'm going to give it a 3.75 because it was definitely better than a 3-star, but I don't know if it's as good as a 4-star for me. 3.5 maybe? I really cannot pinpoint to you what was wrong with it and why I cannot give it a higher rating, but overall I enjoyed it. And if you are looking for like a classic noir mystery, I would definitely recommend this one over Double Indemnity, though that one is much shorter than this one and much more like to the point. This spends a little more time on psychology and how our minds work and how our emotions work, which was interesting. And now the only book that is left is Malice Aforethought. That word is really hard for me. Let's see how long it is. It's 310 pages, and here's what it's about. On a balmy summer's day in 1930, the great and the good of the county are out in force for the annual much-anticipated tennis party, although not everyone has much enthusiasm for the game. In his own garden, the host, Dr. Edmund Bickley, is desperately fighting to conceal the two things on his mind: a mounting passion for Gwynfrid Rattery and a certain conviction that he is going to kill his wife. And this book was written in 1931. I hope it's good. Hello! Many updates for you. I started reading Malice Aforethought and I decided to DNF it. I couldn't handle it, okay? So initially I was really not enjoying it, and I thought, well, let's get to the halfway point and see how I feel about that. I continued not enjoying myself, and I thought, okay, well, let's get to the first, 100 pages and then decide. And I ended up DNFing this book at page 67 because I couldn't do it, and I just felt like I want my reading to bring me any kind of joy. I really don't want to force myself to read something that I really don't want to. So I did take notes while I was reading to make this a little easier. Okay, so the story, oh wait, how do I even start? We're introduced to this man who has a wife. She's compared to a horse based on her looks. She is older than him by, I think, 10 years or something. She is from an aristocratic family, I think, or is like class-wise, she is better than him, and she very much views their marriage as an unequal one, and she feels that she's better than him, and she treats him that way. She is very domineering, she is very controlling and bossy. They don't like each other. From the moment they were married, they lived in separate rooms. They're absolutely not romantic with each other. They just live together, and she basically bosses him around and tells him to do all kinds of stuff while she sits and, I don't know, feels good about herself. She is an easy target. We kind of sympathize with him. He is a doctor in this rural English village. They organize a tennis party for the elite of their village, the creme de la creme of this village, which is 20 people. I did write a note that said, it must have been so much easier to write characters in the 30s. With a room full of people, you only had to come up with a profession and a personality for only half of the people there, the men. Every couple is described as a doctor and his wife, a solicitor and his wife, etc. Then I wrote a note that says, do I believe in this quiet, submissive man having affairs and plotting murder? The bigger reason why I did enough to this book is because I could not handle the main character. Oh my god, there are misogynists, and then there are just women haters, and that's exactly who he is. He is described as someone who is pretty short. He has an inferiority complex. Let me read you a quote about him and women. The result was curious. He was compelled to pursue them. Sheer masculinity, of which, in spite of everything he had his share, drove him on. He could tolerate his inferiority where other men were concerned, for after all, the male criterion is almost always a physical one, and the result is out of one's control. But inferiority to women was unbearable. Perhaps he never realized his with full consciousness, but that made little difference. He pursued women unceasingly, doggedly, and resentfully. And you definitely feel that. Oh my god. There was little gladness in his hunting. The chase filled him more often with dread than with zest. But he simply could not help himself. Something far stronger than his own wishes seemed to be driving him on. It was an urge rooted so deeply in his primitive masculinity, swollen and strengthened by so much brute nature in reaction from the timidity of his civilized mind, that he was totally unable to resist it. So he had affairs with women, a bunch. There's one that he had an affair and then he forgot about her because he got obsessed with a different girl who has no idea what he's doing, but he's like in love, obsessed with her. He tries to kiss her out of nowhere at this party, and their conversation was just so painful to read because it's so real. It says that she was almost in nervous tears, and he says, but I like you so dreadfully. Listen, Winifred, I love you. You don't. I won't listen, Dr. Bickley. Oh, don't call me Dr. Bickley, call me Teddy. Let me go, please. You must let me go. Well, just let me kiss you first, repeated Dr. Bickley doggedly. Even now he felt his self-respect could be solved if she would do that. I will not. Have you ever been kissed, Winifred? You've no right to ask me things like that. I have. I love you. I am going. I mean... And then it says, a slow anger was burning in him, growing steadily every moment, an all-embracing anger directed as much at himself as at his companion. Winifred was just a fool. What time and genuine sentiment he had been wasting on her. Come between husband and wife for a kiss, indeed. Good Lord, how he had been taken in. Why, there was more even in Ivy, silly little eternally crying Ivy, than there was in this piece of conceited affectation. And he had thought her sensible, understanding, possessed of brains instead of the usual feminine fluff. Yes, he was the fool. And like, this is the first chapter, guys, and I was just, no, I don't want to. I know that he decides to kill his wife to have as many affairs as he wants, and he does that by basically making her addicted to opium, I think. And since he's a doctor, he has all kinds of resources for poisons and stuff. I'm very glad of my decision to DNF this book. Here we are. I read all the books except for The Drowner that I couldn't find. I can start on 8 Perfect Murders. Actually already started the audiobook, and I like it so far. I think I mentioned like the setup of the book already in the beginning, and the meeting with the FBI agent already happened, and they went through the list of the books and he talked about them. I do have to say, it made me feel so good every time he mentioned a book that I read. Like, yes! And also hearing his thoughts, because sometimes when I would read some of these books, I would feel, well, this was not like great or perfect. Why is it on the list of perfect murders? But the way he explains why he put it on the list makes total sense. So I'm like 75% into 8 Perfect Murders, and I love it so much. I don't know why, but I almost feel relief at reading a contemporary book. Like, it feels like coming home. The pacing, the style, it just feels so much easier to read than some of the books that I had to read for this video. So first of all, the book starts with saying that it's a memoir. So the guy who wrote this blog, he is basically telling us his story, which is very fun because you sort of get that unreliable narrator. It's also very like self-aware narration, so he does mention several times like, I know how this makes me look, I know what you're probably thinking right now, and it's really fun. The FBI agent comes to him, and what I didn't realize before going into this book, that if the murders were executed well, then most of these murders don't look like murders. That's why they're like perfect murders. So instead of this FBI agent having this like list of you know, killings that were probably done by a serial killer following the methods in these books, it's more like there may be a connection, but also here are all the like recent deaths, and we need to look into them to see if maybe this accidental drowning could be killing that based on the book The Drowner, stuff like that, which I thought was also very interesting, and I didn't think of that before. Also, it was fun that he confesses that he actually did not read the play The Death Trap. He just watched the movie, which is what I did. So I felt validated in my choices. And the book that I didn't read, The Drowner, he actually says that it's not a very good book. So yay for skipping it. What I didn't like is that I got spoiled for Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie, which is one that I've heard is very good and that I really wanted to read. I got spoiled for that, so I will still read it, but I'm kind of bummed that now I know who the killer is. Oh, here's a thing that I didn't love. So he talks about his dead wife who had a drug problem and that she had been molested as a child, and he talked about their like sexual life, and he could tell that she had this dark side because of her abuse, that like she wanted him to call her names, like, or something like that. I don't remember what it was, that it like wasn't enough to have, quote, a normal loving sex, which, I mean, I'm not a psychologist and I don't know where like kinks come from, but I didn't like the fact that he just connected her past abuse to her preferences in bed, because I feel like there's enough shame around sex as it is to talk about, like, if you are interested in something besides the normal, which, by the way, what is normal? There is no normal. Then there's something wrong with you, then you are damaged. I didn't like that part. What I did like, there's a lot of conversation about crime fiction. He owns a bookstore, as I mentioned, where that sells mysteries. So he talked about, like, he's very aware that Gone Girl changed everything for crime fiction, and there is like different trends that are emerging with the unreliable narrator, which is also fun because this is what's happening in this book as he's talking about it, and that domestic thrillers are also very popular, and this book has both those tropes that he says are very popular, which is also very fun. I'm really having such a fun time with this book. Hello and welcome to the finish line of this vlog. So it's Saturday, February the 13th, and currently Moscow is going through a snowstorm of epic proportions. It's been snowing for like 2 or 3 days now, and it's still snowing. It's a little scary. There's so much snow, like so much snow. So yesterday night I finished 8 Perfect Murders, and I really enjoyed it. It was just like such a good ending to this whole experience. Again, do I think you need to read all these books to read 8 Perfect Murders? Absolutely not. Everything is pretty much laid out in the book. The character talks about how he made that list and how it's not a perfect list, and how it's not so much about the books being good, it's more about the concept of a murder, one that would be very hard to identify the killer of, or even identify as a murder, and not just like an accidental death or a natural death in one of the books. I decided to rank all the 8 books that are mentioned in 8 Perfect Murders. And again, the list is made out of not necessarily books with good writing or a good plot, but just a murder concept, which would make this murder hard to solve. I personally ranked them on my general enjoyment of the books. In the last spot, I put Malice Aforethought as, you know, the book that I DNF'd. I couldn't get through it. There are unlikable characters, and there are characters who I just don't want to spend a minute more inside their heads. Then it's ABC Murders, because it was just a little blah for me. I felt like the concept of the murders wasn't super original, but again, this is a book that was written many years ago, so maybe it was at the time. I didn't like the way the investigation went. I felt like Poirot took forever to understand what the killer was doing, and I didn't like the way it all resolved because it involved mental health, and just I was very disappointed by the book overall. Next, originally I put The Secret History, because if I'm looking at this as a mystery novel, it's not a mystery novel, so it doesn't really, it feels really out of place, I have to say, in this list. The parts that The Secret History played in 8 Perfect Murders, I feel like is such a tiny part. It's like there's a whole book of Secret History where a lot of things happen, there are different characters, different plot lines, and there's like this one event and like one thing that is said about that event, and that is the only thing that really served 8 Perfect Murders. So it doesn't feel right to have it on this list anyway. So like on this list that I ranked based on my enjoyment of the book, it should be number 2. Next is Death Trap. It was entertaining. It wasn't mind-blowing, but the concept of the murder was interesting. The way it was done was interesting. I didn't fully love the way it was done because it was supposed to be like part comedy, and I really didn't get the comedy part of it. So it definitely ranks above ABC Murders. Then is Double Indemnity. That one felt like and it is a classic noir story, and I liked the concept. I liked reading how the murder was plotted, basically, and the fact that it was from the perspective of an insurance guy who knows the business and like knows the right things to do to get away with it. I really like that concept, so that was number 4, I'm guessing. Number 3 is Strangers on the Train. Strangers on the Train was great because it does have like a good concept for a murder, and then you kind of see how the human condition makes this not a perfect concept for a murder, because ideally it would be perfect, but it cannot actually be done because humans are humans. And I'm not gonna say more than that, but I like sort of going into human psychology and seeing what that does to you, the guilt, the anxiety. Then I guess on number 2 will be Secret History. And then number 1, which is Red House Mystery, which I gave 5 stars. And I'm sticking to the 5 stars because the amount of joy that book gave me was insurmountable. It was incredible, and it definitely ranks way above all the other books on this list. It was such a cozy read. I thought it was perfect the way it was. It was a little corny, it was funny, it was mysterious. It took me almost to the end of the book to realize what was happening, and I really liked the characters. I liked their conversations, the fact that they were sort of making fun of the genre a little bit. So that definitely is number 1. And A Perfect Murders, I said I gave 4.5 stars. I initially thought that I would get tired after all of this and I would stay away from mystery for a while, but no, I kind of am still in the mood for mystery thrillers. What did I learn from this? Nothing. I'm glad I did this. I was planning to do this for a while, so I'm glad that it's finally out of the way. I'm actually really proud of myself, I have to say. I think this was my like first challenge video, so I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you did, and thank you for watching. I will see you in my next video.